Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Delaney Stovall.
Hey, y'all.
And Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
It's the final season of Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts, Season 3, that we'll be talking about today. Just premiered this week on Netflix. The third final season, all within a year. Pretty crazy stuff with Kipo, right. So we'll be getting into all of our reactions about this last 10 episodes of Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts. Make sure you have seen the final season, then you can come back and listen to the podcast. We'll be getting into spoilers immediately for all of Kipo, and check out our previous discussions on Kipo at overlyanimated.com. You can search Overly Animated Kipo on any podcast app for our previous Kipo pods, and we also had an interview with the creators, so check all that out. But it's time for the final season. Again, spoiler warning. Let's get initial overall thoughts. A lot here, but what were your big reactions, Delaney, to the final season of Kipo?
Number one, I just missed Kipo. I was just watching it and I was like, man, I missed this show so much. I loved every episode. Every time the show starts, the music, everything, I'm just pumped, ready to go. I was just blown away. Honestly, I think Kipo has done a lot, and I think season 3 is a really big season 3 was just an incredible finale to the whole series. I just loved it. I loved every minute of it. It made me laugh. It made me cry. Lots of crying, but I just loved it. Kipo's just amazing.
Okay, very very positive reaction from Delaney. Michelle, what were your big reactions to Kipo's final season?
Last season left on such a cliffhanger. There were some things that I felt they're going to have to definitely tackle this stuff. And they did, not necessarily in the way I expected, but I feel like this was such a nice season to culminate a lot of the things they built up for the last 2 seasons, especially season 2, I would say. I was just really pleasantly surprised at a lot of how these things turned out, how much weight was given to things, how nothing was resolved super easily, but the way everything turned out made a lot of sense narratively given everything else that had happened in the show up to this point. So in terms of character stuff and in terms of thematic stuff, I feel like this was a really strong season. And yeah, I did definitely cry a couple times. We'll get into it. But oh man, this show is so good. And honestly, I know there's the take out there that people wish there was more, but I feel this was clearly the story they always intended to tell. And I feel the way they handled the ending was really wonderful. So I'm 100% happy.
Nice. Okay. That last part. We can, talk about that in a second, but yeah, I also really enjoyed this last season. I thought it was a really good conclusion. That was my main reaction. This was a great conclusion to Kipo. The season itself, I wasn't quite as into as season 2. I agree. I love the story of season 2 so much. So the story here was, but I feel they treated it more as a conclusion to a lot of stuff, which is really interesting. But there still was a lot I loved in the specific season itself. I love the epilogue at the end. So happy with that. I love how Scarlemagne was handled this season. Just really cements him as an incredible character. Scarlemagne and Kipo's relationship, that was one of our favorite parts of last season, was continued really well into this season. And then Kipo herself, her entire arc, I think was really incredible. Those are kind of my high level thoughts. But yeah, it's interesting talking about final seasons and about series finales because we're talking about them as their own thing, but also just as a conclusion to everything we've talked about before. So, as Michelle referenced, some people might be thinking of only 30 episodes. Well, Kipo was clearly greenlit for the specific 30 episodes, 3 seasons before it ever premiered. And that was kind of always how long, similar to She-Ra, always how long it was just going to be. And so they knew that, and they wrote a complete story. We're not used to seeing a 30 episode complete story. So I think it's interesting, how we thought it was handled. But, yeah, Delaney, were you satisfied, as we're big fans of the show, were you satisfied with this season, with the finale as a conclusion to it, and kind of what worked the best for you? What was the most important that the show did in wrapping things up?
Oh, so definitely, I did y'all were talking about you really liked season 2, and I'm kind of the person who and obviously season 2 is amazing. The whole everything with Scarlemagne's great. For me, I'm really what I really like is obviously we always it's kind of like She-Ra, we got our happy ending. Well, what I like is actually dealing with the consequences and actually getting there. So that's what I really liked about season 3 is like, this is what I wanted from like that I feel like I don't usually get from shows. It's kind of like we fade to black and then, oh, everything works out at the end. But I felt like we were really working towards the homophile. like I was really like, that's what I really liked. I liked watching that happen. And I guess that's really what worked for me was all of these like, and I did it in funny ways, kind of like what Michelle was saying, is like, well, how do we get everyone together? Well, at first you think it's going to be easy. Look, they're all lying. No, right. They actually stole the centrifuge. And like, so I think that they did it in really, like, I think all of it tied together really well. I think they did a really good job of like they had already sold Dr. Amelia, but it was kind of hard in season 2 to switch villains like that. And then I think they did a really good job of selling Dr. Amelia and selling, and also the other thing was like selling the conflict. Because in a lot of shows, and this is not too dissimilar to the conflict in Star, like you have these, they're not people versus the people. And so I think they really did a good job of selling the conflict, but then also selling Kipo's resolution, which I think is the important, like, key part, is that like Kipo, like Kipo is just so positive. And also like, it's not just Kipo's energy, it's Kipo's everything. Like Kipo does her best to be like, look, like just talk to each other. You don't have to just take it from me. Like talk to each other and like prom. Great idea ever. Also prom, like the fact that prom happened was amazing.
I know.
So good.
So many prom.
Like it really, like I think that's just, it's hard to like pinpoint a moment. Granted, they also, I guess one of my favorite parts of the season was we didn't let Scarlamagne go. Because Scarlamagne and Kipo's relationship is one of the most like compelling parts of the entire show. And I'm really glad that we got like, that's like my favorite. I was like, yes, go talk to Scarlamagne. And I think they did a really good job of that whole interaction. Like there was still that tension, but then Scarlamagne ultimately had to apologize. And I think it would also work really well as a foil to Dr. Amelia. We were never going to get that with Dr. Amelia. And even Scarlamagne himself was like, this, we can't do this. Like Dr. Amelia will never stop. And to save Kipo, we have to do what we have to do. And so that's really, for me, it was just all the little loose ends. And like, and it's silly stuff too. Like Jamak riding in on the Mega Bunny, which, it's all the way back from season 1. And so there's a lot of, there's little things here and there too that I think they did really well. And just, or it's kind of like my wife, for example, she hadn't seen all of season 2. She loves Kipo, and hopefully eventually we can go back and rewatch all of it, so she'll have seen every episode. But stuff like the kaiju fight, which I'm really glad Dylan called it the kaiju fight in the notes, because that's exactly what it was. And watching, without saying anything, watching Dr. Amelia succumb to the Mega, like stuff like that I think I really appreciate it when shows like. One, you want shows to say things explicitly, but you also want them to trust you a little bit that you've been paying attention. So I think Kipo was a good balance of that. And I think it just all came to show in season 3.
Nice. And yeah, and back to what you were saying before, the thing I most remember from your reaction, Delaney, to the season 2 podcast was your like loving of Kipo and Scarlamagne's relationship, and like yes. I feel like the show was simpatico with your you on the. They were like, oh,
we know what you want. They were like, here, and then or it's like God when Kipo was like, oh, and Scarlamagne, can we use your piano? And I was like, oh. So like they did a really good job of selling that, and like which I think And I think there's definitely some complaints about things that maybe got sidelined, but not really sidelined. They all just happened in the background, but we didn't forget about them. Kind of like Troy and Benson. Like we've always had movement. All of our threads had movement the whole time. Even if they weren't happening completely on screen, we would mention them. And then we would talk about Scarlamagne, and then we'd bring him out, and then we'd actually like Kipo and Scarlamagne actually had a lot of interactions this season.
Yeah, nice. Michelle, how about you? Anything you want to highlight that you thought was wrapped up particularly well, or what you thought the most important things were to wrap up from the show?
Not even just in terms of wrapping up. I just kind of want to echo, because Delaney was talking about how well they sold the conflict, and one thing I really appreciated is like it's not just that like one side of this, like the humans or the mutes have like the high, like they both have their stuff. For the humans, it's like, being mind controlled by Scarlamagne and kind of like living in a burrow because they were afraid of the surface, and they were like, they grew up fearing mutes, and mutes, it's like Dr. Amelia is like such a threat, and she could destroy all of their lives and turn them into like basic creatures, and that's like a legitimate threat too. So I love that this situation, like, Kipo definitely was the instigator, but you see so many moments of just like a mutant and a human just kind of coming together in a way that makes sense to them personally, in the background, and like all of that's reinforced a lot through like, oh man, I'm gonna have a hard time remembering people's names, but like the kind of broy guy who was their prisoner,
Zane.
and he makes friends with like,
Zane,
Zane, and like
the kind of broy guy. I would definitely,
everyone knows who that is.
As 100% broy.
Him coming together with like the buff raccoon lady, like they just like they vibed, and that's what got them to connect to each other as peers. And like, yeah, again, like Kipo instigated that, but like it wasn't all on her. Like these people are perfectly capable of making these relationships as they have the chance. And I think like Kipo was there to instigate the chance, but it was all up to like people individually taking that chance for it to come about in such a satisfying way. And I love that. I also love that, like, in terms of Amelia, like, I remember thinking around episode 8, like, wow, I'm so glad we didn't get a backstory on Amelia, because I really didn't want that for the show. And we got it. There was, like, yeah, like, episode 9 came around, they were like, surprise, here it is. The thing I love about this is that I feel like we get just enough to get her deal without, like, soaking in it to make her, like, too empathetic. I feel like they gave us a really nice balance of, like, all right, she had this pressure from her dad, but also she, like, kills her brother and lied about it. This is kind of the person she's been for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it really sells her as a legitimate threat in a way that I think nothing else would have up to that point. Because, like, I think, like, with Kipo, like, Kipo's kind of been our POV character for so long. You kind of want to believe that she could even get through to Amelia. But, like, that flashback really seals, like, no, like, there's no stopping her. And maybe we don't kill her, but we definitely can't just, like, ignore this. It's too dangerous. And I love that, too. So there were a lot of things that I just appreciated them spending time on. And, like, the fact that, like, you know, before the prom happened, like, you know, like, the humans were, like, terrified, and the mutes, like, they're like, yo, like, you've already, like, cured some of our, like, family or friends, and, like, that's a big deal, and we need time to, like, ruminate on that and decide if we're okay moving forward with this plan and being a part of Hamufa anymore, because, like, this is a serious consequence. Like, nothing's, like, lightly brushed over, and I feel like that helps really ground the, like, the intensity of, like, what this conflict really is, you know? And like that, it gave it stakes, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And I really liked that it had such stakes, because they were very understandable and compelling, and helped, like, make the culmination, like, so much more satisfying when we finally got there.
Yeah. So a lot of interesting stuff there, and we're going to circle back, I think, to some interesting Amelia stuff you brought up. Let's compare it to. I will also circle back to. I have a comment about Zane. We'll circle back.
Zane.
I want to echo what you guys are saying about how I feel like the most important thing for wrapping up the show was the season's main theme was, like, human mute unity, human mute solidarity, and I thought that was a perfect,
the ultimate friendship alliance
theme. As story wise exemplified by Hamufa. I do think that's constantly the theme of the season, and something that really feels right after everything we went through in the first 2 seasons. So I think, like, to me, it's like that was so important. They nailed it, and also, like, everything they did with Scarlett, I feel like they really nailed too. Especially because he's just like it's a weird thing where 2/3 of the shows has Scarlett as the villain, and now we're pivoting to someone else. So it's like he's still a big deal in the context of the show. So how do you handle it? And I do think him and Kipo, and how that it also played into the human unity theme. I thought that was, like, really well handled. I also do think we got a lot more backstories to a lot of characters. Here's one point I want to make. You guys can tell me whether you agree. I felt like this season is more complementary to the rest of the show than, like, its own substantial unit. And the evidence, I would say, for that is we already knew basically all the main parts of the story. I don't think this season gave us new backstory. But we did get the additional minor thing of, like, Amelia's backstory with seeing with her dad and killing her brother. We saw, like, the exact moment she mind controlled Song, but we already knew that happened. Like there's a lot of like complementary pieces I feel like that this season added to it, but there's nothing really groundbreaking I felt like to the bigger picture that this season added.
That's a good point, because like the only other flashback I can think of is the one with Benson and Dave like finding each other, but that feeds directly into the mute human situation. So like even that kind of ties back to the theme that the whole season's about. So I mean, I think that's fair to say. Like, it's not like we have any big revelations. It's just kind of a season that builds on everything we already know, and like, you know, it's like the top of the sundae or the cake or whatever. It's the part that makes it like even more satisfying. But
yeah,
there's not like any like exploring, adventuring this season. It's more about just like, are we going to go to the ship? Oh, we got to get the poison ivy or whatever. Like, it's about like planning and strategy and like mini fights and then like an ultimate fight. But it's not like the going around meeting new people, like making new friends kind of thing. Because like I feel like it makes sense, because like third season, like we've done that already. It's time to like make a bigger move, and I feel like this was like a bigger move than just like what we've seen before, I'd say, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was more of like there's a main conflict at the root of the story. It was I think that that feels a little bigger in scope. Another way of framing the thing I said before is like, I do think Kipo's a show that for the first 2 seasons was very centered on unraveling the past and presenting it in flashbacks to us. I think that was just season 2, it's a huge component of it. I also think season 1, you might not remember, we learned a lot through that we take for granted now throughout season 1 in flashbacks. And then and by the time we get to season 3, like we have all the key components. So we do get flashbacks here, but like we talked about in previous seasons, how this show did a thing where it always had an unrelated part at the beginning of the episode to the rest of the episode, a pre-credit scene. Like we sometimes get that this season. Like it's a little less of, it feels like a little bit less of the core of Kipo at this point. I think given how all out I feel like they went in season 2 with the Scarlemagne stuff and the backstory, I feel like, not trying to redo it is good. Like, I think it was like more complimenting it than trying to one up it. It goes bigger in scope in different ways. Yeah. Like in the main plot conflict versus, trying to continue on with the flashbacks and stuff. So I do like how it was handled, even if, ultimately, I might not look back on it as fondly. I mean, I think it's interesting to compare this show to Avatar and its last season. I think Avatar for me is the obvious comparison for Kipo, purely because, 3-season kind of short show, telling a full story from start to finish, very rare, like a very serialized show. Kipo is half the episodes of Avatar, but other than that, it's very similarly structured, I think. And, I'm not going to say Avatar better, but, I feel better about the last season of Kipo. I always have complicated feelings about the last season of Avatar. I feel like a lot was going on there. And another thing with Avatar I want to say, by the way, is they both very much center in on this theme of what are we going to do with the main villain? Can we kill them or not? Like, and that's like a big theme at the end of Avatar in the finale. And this is something Kipo, I think, is going through, like what to do with Amelia. How do you handle it? Her discouraging Wolf and Scarlemagne from going after her. So I do think we also maybe approach similar themes towards the end of the shows.
Well, I want to push back a little bit just with like, I know what you mean by complimentary, but it's more like, I think Kipo is just so different from a lot of the shows we talk about, and even Avatar. We're talking, and I actually think Kipo's better than Avatar. I think that's a really big moment.
Very hot take from you, Delaney.
No, it's extremely hot take.
I like it.
No, and that's the thing. Like for me, like, and it all comes down to what we like. And so, like I was talking about, like what Kipo deals with is what I wish we could get from more shows. Like for example, Avatar ends, and the Fire Lord's defeated. And then you figure out everything else from either the comics or Korra. But Korra doesn't really Korra deals with more of like the consequences of what happened versus like actually what happened. And again, we have a lot of this side content. We have a lot of comics. And Kipo, you see it happen in real time. And then we also get the epilogue. And so, which it's not just all on the epilogue. Like, I'm not going to give that much credit to like this very short scene we get. It's a great sequence. I loved the epilogue. And usually I don't like epilogues. And so, but this, like, and I think a good point is, like we talked about, Avatar is, it's 60 episodes and then we have 30. This is a much tighter story.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to what you like. Like there's like, you know, I hate the word filler, but there's a lot of filler in Avatar. Avatar, they literally traveled everywhere. Like you were like, they went everywhere. They had a lot of things to do. A lot of the first season is Aang being a goofball and he wants to go to all these places that he missed. And then we have Kipo's also a travel log, but we have to go to all these places for either like someone got kidnapped, we need to go talk to them, like, you know, it's much more purposeful the way we travel around. And then we another thing I liked about season 3 is we do it all, but really fast because we've all been here before and we all know each other. We don't have to do all the introductions again. And so like, the complimentary, it's more like this. I mean, again, this is an opinion, but like Kipo tells stories the way they should be told. Like it's this like, and it's a very similar, like a lot of shows are like this. Like a lot of the shows follow this Avatar format. Like book 1, we have to get to the water tribe and for Aang to learn waterbending. Book 2, Aang needs to master earth. Book 3, Aang has to master fire and defeat the Fire Lord. Cool. Very simple. That's like, I mean, more happens, but those are the basic plots of those seasons. Similar things happen in Korra. Again, similarly structured show. It's the sequel. Kipo, it's more of this overarching story. Like you definitely have plots in season 1, season 2, and then we have season 2 where it's like what Dylan was saying was unraveling. Like we have a lot of this world building, figuring out what's going on, where we are in the world, and then also fighting Scarlemagne, which is the focus of the first 2 seasons. And then now we have into book 3, and it's like we're dealing with a lot of fallout. And so it's more of this, it's not that book 3 is complimentary, it's that book 3, well, season 3, I should say. Sorry, I'm getting caught up.
Are these books? I don't even remember if there's.
It's the same. Who cares? Like, it's season 3 acts like a total encompassing finale, as opposed to like, you know, you have season 1, you have the finale of season 1, you have season 2, you have the finale of season 2, and a lot of shows follow this format where like, and that's another thing we can talk about with Korra is that like the story of Korra. The overarching thing of all the books is Korra's journey herself as a character. Yeah. And Aang goes on a very different journey.
Yeah, so you're saying with Kipo, you don't view it as complimentary because maybe there's a little negative there. You view it as like properly building and concluding what came before as a final season should
as opposed to having like, and I think that's the other thing where we have this satisfaction, and it's kind of like what Steven Universe Future did. So like. Which is kind of
is season 3 of Kipo the Steven Universe future?
Yeah, it's kind of like you have this whole series. You get to the point in Steven, and you're like, oh, cool, everything's great, but like what? And then we get Steven Universe future, and we actually deal with everything that happened. And so that's kind of what we're doing here with Kipo is that we have the plot, we have the problems, we solve them, and then we get to the end. And so instead of like every season being a new story, it's like this actual, or like I guess I should say conflict because. You know, it's still the same story. Like, duh, that's how stories work. But it's kind of like TV shows have always been very different than books. You read a book and there's usually one conflict and you end and the book's over. Or you have series of books and like they deal with certain things, but it all deals with the overarching, like the end. Well, that's kind of how Kipo feels more like a book than a TV show because it kind of breaks this sort of mold of like, you have to have a conflict every season. Now, there is a conflict in season 3. It's Dr. Amelia. But again, that's a conflict that was introduced in season 2. I definitely feel what you're saying about the complimentary because it doesn't feel like a traditional season because book 3 is actually like, we're tying everything up in a way that we're not used to. It's like with She-Ra, like season 5 of She-Ra is completely different from literally the rest of the show. Like it's very much heel turn and it's not a bad thing. It's just very different and it feels very separated from the 4 seasons prior to it. And that's kind of what Kipo's done, but in a smoother manner.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. And yeah, maybe here we are in the future in the epilogue of the last episode of Kipo. I think certainly that's what it felt like. But, I think the overall point of like maybe something that differentiates Kipo from any other show we've talked about really on this podcast is the completeness and the smoothness of the story. Just like not many shows get to be this tight 30 episode one story. Most shows, not even animated shows, this is like for me pretty indicative of like cable dramas of like here's the story this season, here's the story next season. And it's like very just different stuff. And we did get a little bit of that this season with Dr. Amelia, but to the show's credit, I think one of Delaney's big points is that it all feels really tied together. And I do think that's one of the strengths of Kipo.
I like kind of what Michelle was saying, and we're kind of getting there now too. Is this? Well, you want more episodes of Kipo. Well, what are we going to do now? Like, it's kind of like this.
Yeah, the conflict's over.
Like, the conflict's over. And, like, my thing is that, like, there's a lot of shows that just, they don't have a conflict. Or, like with Steven, a lot of the conflict was in the background, and then it would pull forward, and then it would pull back. Like, that was a lot of, like, there was a lot of weird, like, Steven is 6 seasons, and, like, we go all over the place.
A lot more episodes.
A lot more episodes. And Kipo's also kind of like, a lot of the shows we cover are that 11-minute format. Kipo's not. And makes it much more similar to the storytelling you get in Avatar and Korra. And of course, you can't discount, like, Kipo was clearly inspired by certain aspects of Korra and Avatar. And this, I had the point, it's leaving. Oh, about it's like, we finished. And not only did we finish, like, I would have been fine if we didn't get the epilogue. I did have the epilogue spoiled for me because I saw screen caps, but like, I didn't like there's nothing wrong with the time jump, but it's also like, especially with the time jump, what more do we need? Like, we've told this complete, like, Kipo is going to live out the rest of her life, and it's going to be awesome. Like, she's like, there's nothing more, like, Kipo's story is like her bringing everyone together, because that's who Kipo is, and also getting her family back. Like, all of Kipo's, like, and Wolf, like, all of this is about family and, like, bringing communities together, and we got that. It's done. Like, what more do we need? Do you want to watch an episode about, like,
no more conflict in Kipo's life ever. That's canon.
Yeah, we're good. That's what we need. That's what we get from our stories. That's what we want.
Yeah, so you're saying you thought it wrapped everything up right? Yeah, fan fiction for sure. You're saying everything was wrapped up very well. Okay, and we can talk about that. But briefly, in terms of the legacy of Kipo, I don't think we need to go into this too much. But if we've established Kipo, like, has a format of like an Avatar: The Last Airbender that is very appealing to some people, a lot of people, I think, including myself. But I think this is a very broadly applicable show. With its, you can just go on Netflix, you can watch this entire epic arc in 30 episodes. I think I do think this I've said this before, I think this has lasting power, and I've also said, like, I think Kipo is a special show. I think this season wraps it up well, so I think that this is like one of the most special shows we've covered on this podcast. To me, it jumps out out of anything apart from Steven Universe and BoJack. So I think that's some pretty high praise for Kipo. And we'll see how it goes down. I don't know. I do think, like, the circumstances are right for this show having a lasting impact similar to Avatar into the future. People being able to visit it for the first time and consume it and go on this journey that Kipo has. Transition, Michelle, any follow-up thoughts on that, or if we want to transition to the next thing, what something that, like, is standing out to you that you like about the season we haven't talked a lot about yet?
I was mostly thinking about just, like, in relation to other shows. One thing I really appreciated, and this is, like, the only thing I screen capped because, like, I had to hunker down and finish, like, 5 episodes. Is it
today. Older Kipo?
No, but oh my gosh, she looks amazing. But no, I'm not going to distract myself with that. Like, the thing that really shook me, because, like, we've talked a lot about Kipo's relationship with Scarlett, and while I do, like, that is, like, like Delaney, like, that is so my stuff. One thing I really appreciated this season was that the show seemed very intentionally to give a lot more focus back to Wolf, and, like, Scarlett's there, but also, like, Wolf and Scarlett have a whole relationship. But, like, the thing that really broke me was when the kaiju battle's happening and Wolf's immediately like, I'm not letting you do this alone, and she's there with her for pretty much the entire fight. And then after that, it's like all of Kipo's closest friends, like, including Jamak, which is so funny. Like, what a change by the beginning of the season to this. And, like, they're all coming together, and in that way it reminded me of what I feel is, like, this wonderful shift away, like, similar to, like, Steven Universe Future and similar to the ending of She-Ra, where, like, these shows, and again, like, this is still, like, a children's show, like, broadly, but, like, the fact that, like, there's this ongoing conversation when you have a main character who, like, assumes they have to resolve all the conflict themselves, and that's, like, so not usually the best case scenario, and seeing more and more of, like, the people they've impacted and care about come to their aid, and help them do this as, like, a group effort is like so nice to see. And it fits so well with the theme of the show being like, as Delaney was saying, like so family focused, like, you know, blood family, but also fan family. And they highlighted like the teamwork effort of that so well this season that by the time you get to the epilogue, I feel like what makes the epilogue feel so satisfying in a way a lot of epilogues don't is just like, it's the culmination of all the effort. Like they're all 5 years older. They're fitting into these new lives and they're comfortable and they're happy and they're together.
They're a family.
That's what they wanted. When you see them all like laying down on the grass and they're just like at peace with life and with each other, it's just such a crazy nice moment. Like I feel like that's like one of the moments I'm gonna go back to, is just seeing how like they're all older, but like they're still each other's family, and like it did turn out okay. And that's like such a good, I don't know, like that's the kind of energy I want to see more in shows. And I feel like it was really nicely handled, because like, yeah, Kipo's one of those, you know, one of those protagonists that like it's probably going to want to take on too much literally all the time. And I think it's really nice that, you know, some of her family pushed back at her. Like I like that Wolf and Scarlamagne like went off to do a mission and you're like, we get this about Kipo. We think it might be a flaw. We're going to do this our own way. And then they like realize after trying it their way that like, oh, like this is why we probably shouldn't go behind Kipo's back and like really change our minds. It's like, it's so nice to see that like we see them actually try things and change their mind in real time. Like it's so much more satisfying than if Kipo just went, don't do it. And you're like, yeah, okay. Like, cause they're their own people. Like, and as much as this show is about Kipo, I feel like the fact that so many of these characters on their own are able to make decisions in a way that makes sense for them personally, and not just because they see the world the way Kipo does, is like a really good way to flesh out like the reality of the world. And yeah, that might have been a little bit of a tangent into a direction, but like basically, like I love that it's stayed so consciously about family, and like the epilogue's the culmination of all that, and it's so good.
Well, there's really a lot of like a really important moment in the scenes you're talking about. Like a really important line that stuck out to me was when Wolf is like, we can't be with Kipo and not stand next to her.
Yeah.
Which that was really like one that I like felt that in my soul. And then also it's like, that's really like, that's like, we can't like, you know, there are no half measures. We're either all in on Kipo or we're not. We have to do it her way, which I thought, you know, was really meaningful, especially coming from Wolf. And there's some more scenes like that. You're talking about making decisions in real time. Like Wolf, she, you know, talks to Scarlamagne a lot. She even talks to Margot when she's like, look, I didn't think this. Kipo changed my mind. And there's this constant of like reaffirming why she changed her mind and everything Kipo's done and all the things that she's experienced. And then also like their own people, like something that I think Kipo has done exceptionally well. And I mean, and I don't even mean just with animation. I mean, in all media, is when you have a trio, well, really a quartet, but like it's Dave. But like, granted, but that's the same thing though too. Is like Dave had his moment to shine this season, and also like this doesn't feel like I would never say Wolf or Benson are side characters. They each get their moments to breathe, and it's also like, for example, it's like Wolf and Kipo are best friends, but Benson and Kipo have such a special relationship, and we get to see that. And like another, like, you know, something I really like, it's a little scene, is when Benson's like, oh, I had a date. And then Kipo's, we have to do this. And Benson's like, okay. So like, it's really sweet, these moments. And like, you know, and it's not just when Wolf's not there, like Kipo can always turn to Benson for different issues. And like, I think that's something Kipo's done such a good job about, is selling this family, selling these relationships. And it's like, and me and my wife were joking. It's like we're talking about like what, like I saw a comic today and I was showing my wife, and it's like Wolf like called Leo and Song mom and dad, and they're like sobbing. And and we were just joking, like Leo and Song are just like, I'm your parents now, like to everyone. Like they're like, I'm your mom. Like they to Benson, to Dave, like they're everyone's mom now. And like that's just something they've done such a good job about. And it's just like that's really what the epilogue, like that's what's so satisfying about the epilogue. And like and even Hugo's there. They're all there. And another scene I wanted to point out real quick, what that was really meaningful about that too, was something that really got me, was when Hugo's dying, and it's not just Kipo and Song and Leo, but all like Wolf and Benson and Dave are all behind her. And like everyone's crying, and it's not just because it's because they all like they're all a family, and it was just so devastating to watch, like all of it. And so that was something that really stood out to me, was just how much like all of the, it's like this isn't just like, oh, because we say everything's found family, but like this is really like they really sell you on these relationships between all of the characters. Dave and Leo have an episode that's amazing. Like why? I don't know, but they do, and like they sell you on all of these relationships.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of good stuff about the family aspect of Kipo, and I like that point that's why the epilogue plays really well. I think is highlighting those aspects. I mean, in general, I'm very pro epilogue, always have been very, and this is a great epilogue. This is one of the best
amazing.
ones. So,
like, so good.
And seeing all the new designs, especially Kipo, older Kipo,
God,
is incredible.
Kipo,
yes,
Kipo
she looks so cool. Oh my god, her
so
hair.
Mad. Like I'm so mad it got ruined for me. Then I was like so excited, so I saw the screen cap on Twitter, and then we watched the episode, and I was just like, oh my god. Like I can't get over it. It's just, and then Wolf's hair, it's just, they're all great. All of them look great.
Benson's hair, oh my god.
I know. And like Troy, they're so cute. So cute.
Yeah, well, Benson and Troy, a big component of the epilogue too. They kiss in the epilogue, Babe, I think. So let's talk about. Yeah.
They also give Troy a lot. We can talk about this more obviously, but like I do want to say that like, you know, as much as like they put Benson and Troy sometimes in the background. A lot of development happens off screen. Troy is very central to this season, and he's amazing.
Yeah, let's talk about Benson and Troy, because in some ways it feels it's not like a main character relationship like we're used to seeing, but we finally see the culmination of this, where like two main characters, but this is, you know, like something that is threaded throughout the entire season in a way which I feel like is exactly what we wanted. They're dating right away this season.
We don't need will they or won't they, just put them together.
Look, we have this show, this is a hot topic of like characters actually dating during the show. Look, a third of the show, Troy and Benson end up dating because they mention a date in episode 1. We get boyfriend. Troy didn't even exist
in season 1. Like the progress.
Yeah, until the finale. That's true. They have a hug in 5. Then 8, the big Troy Benson episode. Benson asking Troy to the prom, and then they kiss. Kiss again in the epilogue. Yeah, I know there's a kiss in the cheek too before this. So, it doesn't, I mean, all of this like a year ago would be, mind blowing. Right. So it still is, but, this is, you know, we're in a new world now where all this stuff is a little bit more commonplace, but I think to the extent that we saw Troy and Benson be romantic throughout the season is maybe unprecedented in its own right, especially for two men in a relationship in a kids animated show.
Like, you know, it's almost like, I don't know how I want to put it. Like, one, it's a big deal because like after Voltron, it was kind of like, no guys, none. And now we're like, look, we got like Benson and Troy, and they're super cute. And I'm like, that's the thing. Like, this is a big deal. I think like Voltron did it, but Kipo actually did it. Like, we actually have two
I just want to say about Voltron, I know a lot of people are obviously very frustrated with how Queer Rep handled in Voltron. I think Voltron directly paved the way for what Kipo does here.
Oh, they
it's
did.
a DreamWorks
like,
show. So, I'm very grateful for what the Voltron crew went through in their struggles to bring whatever they could to the screen. I know it didn't go great. But like, now we see the benefit of the work of shows like that put in only a few years ago.
Oh, definitely. And that's the thing. Like, well, it's just like, you know, it's like Korra. There are so many people. There's so many things you could say about Korra, but like, we wouldn't be here without Korra. We wouldn't have She-Ra without Korra. Like
and I think that's been like properly highlighted by a lot of news outlets throughout this year, which has been wonderful.
Oh yeah, every time there's an article, they're like, Korra saw me. I'm like, yes, you are correct.
Yeah, but I mean, look, like, so part of it is highlighting the groundbreakingness of Benson and Troy, with, you know, this is a lot of talk about how there's not as much, male queer rep in kids animated shows. And I think Benson and Troy is, a standout example that will hopefully pave the way for even more in the future. But in its own right, this just feels like a pretty complete, like love story, that doesn't even seem censored at all. Like, apparently it wasn't, but like, it's like, how are we here that this is just a thing where they're together all throughout the season? And apart from like the queer up aspect of it, I thought it was just a great plot line this season. I thought it was really well integrated. It's like, oh, there's a prom episode. Obviously we need to do a big Benson and Troy story.
And then the promposal, like I really I like how like they were like, this is an ancient tradition. I was like, I hate this show, but like it was good. Like they did such a good job with it. Like that's the thing. Everything feels so real, and I don't know when this is coming. Like eventually the show will happen. Like we're talking, like, you know, there's this natural progression of things. It's like, well, now we just need our like queer, like, you know, male main character and his boyfriend going on adventures. Like that's the next step.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're getting like maybe an Owl House version of that for women. Yeah. And, are you an animated show that's aired in the last, year and a half? If you don't have a, prom episode that's spelled gay prom that also is not called exactly prom, has some weird variation of prom. Like why? Like, why would like first?
The problem is like they are all prom. So this one's literally called prom, which was really funny.
But it's PRAHM.
Well, it's really funny. Yeah. Like I'm so glad I watch Netflix with like subtitles. It makes my life a lot easier. But then like, so we had Princess Prom, and that was still prom. Grom is like, it's just so funny. Like it's just so good.
The fact that we got Princess Prom, Grom, and Owl House, and then prom all within like a year.
I will say this is what got me. Like this prom is what sent me over the edge. Like I was
do you think this is the best of the proms? That's a bold. These are some beloved proms that came before this.
Ooh, that's a good take. Okay, let's see. It's hard. I loved this prom. My only issue with this prom is that Kipo and Wolf didn't dance. Like.
Were we shipping the Kipo, and were we like, are they going to do it in the epilogue? Was there any of that happening with you guys?
This is the problem. I love the family aspect, but me and my wife were also like, but what if they were gay? like both are good. Like I'm very much like, I want both, and you could have both. It's very much a Flash Iris West situation, and like, it's like it could happen.
I can figure out what that is, but I don't know what that is.
Iris's family adopts Barry Allen, and then like, and they fall in love and everything. But like, they like were raised together in the same house.
Okay, sketch. But
that's all you need. That's all the context you need.
Yeah, I got it. So thank you. Yeah, we definitely went the no love interest route with Kipo. Like Kipo doesn't end up with anyone. Very Moana-esque.
Too busy.
She is too busy. That's true. There's not enough room in her brain for that nonsense. Like.
And since the Benson debacle in season 1 has not expressed any romantic interest for anyone. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like I would have been like, I need to like sit down for a little bit.
She's still recovering from that, yeah.
As someone who was a 13-year-old girl once, that's pretty upsetting. Like, not in that she's upset, it's just like, wow, I'm embarrassed. I need to leave.
You could have done the show in Kipo with someone, and it's 5 years later in that blog. But no, the show is not really interested in doing that. Anyway,
I think it's an interesting choice, I think, to have this really prominent romance, like love story, and it not be the main character. Like, I think it's really neat. Like,
that's something we're used to
recently. It a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before we move on, though, Michelle, anything we didn't talk about with Troy and Benson, how you liked them throughout the season?
I really liked Troy and Benson. I was wondering like how much focus they were going to get, and I feel like it was a very I'm happy with the amount. Like it's hard because you're balancing like the real plot stuff with like the characterization stuff, and I feel like the balance they reached with Troy and Benson made a lot of sense given everything else that had to happen this season. The thing that I think's pretty, because like it's a really good point that there is just a lot less gay male queerness in children's animation, and honestly, the thing that I feel like made Troy and Benson stand out in a way that, like, honestly, not like a lot of queer rep has in that circle is that their affection for each other is so casually and freely given, because I feel like a lot of times,
yes.
a lot of times in shows, it's like you have to wait till the very end and there's this one dramatic kiss that like finally proves how they feel. And this is like, there are little kisses here and there, and none of it's dramatic, none of it's a big statement, but that's like part of what's so wonderfully normalizing about it. And in that's own right, I feel like it's very, like, we don't really see that period anyway. So like that's like part of the edge that I feel like they have over a lot of, it's not a contest, but like it sets them apart, you know?
No, I completely agree. The normalization of their romantic interactions throughout the season, even before this season, is it's a breath of fresh air. It feels incredible. It's something that Korosami and even like a Cachador, like they're wonderful. They culminate at the end. We, like outside of maybe what we're getting with Owl House is not something we've ever really seen before with a queer couple.
Cute in the show.
Being
really cute and having the confirmation so early that it doesn't have to be a thing that you feel half crazy for reading into as real.
Yeah.
Like,
no one ever doubted Troy and Benson.
Yeah, we never doubted it because we knew he had a crush on him the second he saw him at the end of season 1, and he'd already told Kipo he was straight up gay. So there's no struggle. You can just enjoy it. And again, just like the constant casualness of that affection, I feel like it is so good. That's part of normalizing anything. Just like sometimes it's nice to be casual and just have a lot of it.
And the like pink anime background they do every time is definitely the best.
Pink anime background. I also want to say, I think Ruby and Sapphire also had a similar normalization.
Yes.
For sure.
Once you realize they
the proto
exist.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, once you realize they exist, it's really good.
I think from Benson just flat out saying he's gay in episode 6 to the introduction of his crush on Troy at the end of season 1, through them starting to thread it into season 3, his crush, their increasing interactions, to them straight up dating and kissing multiple times in season 3. Maybe this is a hot take, maybe it's not. I think this is the most complete queer romance arc we've seen in animation.
Yes, sold.
Not a lot. To be fair, not a lot of competition because everything's been censored.
Not a lot of competition is good.
Hopefully, we're seeing a similar thing with Lumity, but in Owl House.
Please,
yeah, that's true.
Dear God, I will die. I want it so bad.
I trust them. I'm excited.
There's nothing wrong with everyone loves how many fanfics I read that are like, it's like, what is it? What do they call it? Slow burn.
Yeah,
and
like the very chaste.
We love those. Yeah, we love that. But also, can we and honestly, this is a criticism of straight, of just media period. It's like I watched a lot of Bones growing up, and it took 6 seasons for them to get together. And I'm like, why did y'all do this? And it's like, there's I don't know what it is with this fascination with romance, will they or won't they? But then not actually which Kim Possible actually did a really good job in the season 4 that no one watched, but 8 people were they came back and they were dating and they had the whole season and it was amazing. So it's we can do this. Let us have it.
Yeah, I think we've shifted from shows have never done, at least animated shows, they've never done people dating with, now we have Troy and Benson, we have a romance arc with Lumity, so I think it's less of a hypothetical now. Now it's the present. Kipo's a big part of that. Really, really wonderful stuff from Troy and Benson. I want to shift gears about as much as you can to Dr. Amelia. But we could, if there's any further further Troy and Benson thoughts, you can always bring them up. But I think Michelle made a really interesting point earlier with the level of sympathy the show wants you to view Dr. Amelia with, because this is a very hot topic with Infinity Train Book 3 recently and its treatment of Simon.
Also in Amelia, it's just M versus A, but still
that's the other Amelia in that show.
Amelias in general in animation.
Amelias have to be old ladies, or not old,
yes,
but,
middle.
It's
a sneaky plan at one point in their lives.
Middle-aged, at least questionable motivation. I don't know. Women. I do think what we did with Dr. Amelia, extremely bold move with showing her flat out murdering her brother in episode 9 in the backstory.
I wasn't ready. I really
I loved it.
Me and my wife paused it. We were like, she killed her brother. We were like right before it happened, we were like, oh my God, she's gonna kill him. This is what binge watching with my wife is like. There's a lot of pausing and yelling. Like, about what's
Sounds like
going on.
April with Ladybug, but no,
Yes,
it's a
yes.
in a
I
good
can
way.
picture it.
Yeah, right. I thought that was like, oh my god, I cannot believe they went there. And then also in the finale when it's not like a huge deal, she picks up
She
the
was
shard
gonna
of glass to try to
stab
murder
her.
Kipo. I was
That
like,
is
wow.
so- okay.
I saw the glass on the ground, like, all right, they could do that, but
I don't know.
yeah.
And then she did it, and I was like, "You were good." So here's the thing. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. So, one, in the beginning, Dr. Amelia is like, "I've been trying to kill this baby for 13 years. That's messed up. You're messed up. You're trying to kill a baby. Then you meet the baby, and you still want to kill her. Why would you want to kill Kipo, the sweetest human being ever to exist on Earth?
But we know why.
She's a precious baby." And then, like, she's just so. And this is something that I think. Like, this is a really big topic I want to talk about with Dr. Amelia, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot. And I'm going to talk a lot about Steven Universe just because it's like really one of the big like comparisons, because Steven and Kipo ultimately are extremely similar characters. These shows have extremely similar messages of found family, of and of this concept of radical empathy, and of like living your life in a way that like you see the good in everyone, and about like it doesn't matter what others say and do, but you like this goodness like of what's right and what's wrong, and what should be extended to everyone. And so Kipo and Steven are very similar characters, and they're very similar shows. But here is where Kipo and Steven diverge in a way that, like, again, I'm right now, Kipo's like my top shows are Korra, Avatar, She-Ra, and Steven Universe. And I think Kipo right now, it might be my number one. I think it's better than Avatar. And ultimately, I think it accomplishes what Steven Universe may have failed to accomplish. And this is what I want to talk about a little bit. And of course, I love Steven. Like, hello, I'm like such a Garnet stan. But like, I just want to talk about like these very different stories. And like, I think Kipo addresses a lot of what people kind of either didn't get with Steven, or they think that maybe Steven didn't accomplish, which is like, you get to change your mind, and you're like, okay, Steven did it. Steven won. He's made Steven is so hopeful and loving and positive and he's right, and everyone agrees with Steven. And here, and maybe we're accomplishing different things, but I guess maybe this speaks more to Kipo's character, where Kipo, there's other than in Steven Universe Future, and even that conflict isn't about like this conflict of right over wrong. This was Steven struggling with all of his trauma for the past forever, because that boy needed therapy. But here, and we have Kipo, we see her struggle in season 3 with, she didn't want to fight her people. And then she's like, okay, I have to, because I didn't fight. People I loved got hurt. This is all my fault, and I'm going to finish it. And that's, and then of course, Wolf and then we get this really amazing like Dave like nonsense, and also and Benson are like, you can't come back from this. You can't do this. This will completely change who you are, and you can't do this. And ultimately, Kipo's like, you're right. And so, and then even after all that, and even after Song tells Kipo that Dr. Amelia can't come back, that she killed her brother, and that she is like, the most horrible human being you can possibly be, that she is so convinced by all of this that she can't be changed, Kipo tries anyway. And that, I think, is one of the most, Steven, we get the happy ending. Everyone agrees with Steven. Everyone's happy. We just kind of were like, I'm not going back to Homeworld because they're crazy. But here, and even ultimately when you think Steven's going to lose in the movie, like, he doesn't. Spinell comes to agrees with him. And then here, Kipo, she's like, I know you've done horrible things, but not, and even though Dr. Amelia's whole thing was taking away everyone's agency in their mind, Kipo was like, no one deserves that, not even you. And she went in, like, she didn't have to. She saved Amelia from being lost to the Mega. And like, it's so incredible. And even though Amelia was like, Amelia was literally just going to straight up murder Kipo like several times, like, it wasn't like Kipo was like, it doesn't matter, like, you still deserve this chance. And to me, that is just like the boundless like love that Kipo has is just so overwhelming, and I love it so much, and it means so much to me. And it just, and also that's what we kind of tie together here in Kipo, is that like all living things deserve to live as they are and to be happy. And, you know, that's just something that I just love so much and I identify with so incredibly. And, you know, it just helps too that, you know, like Dr. Amelia was going to be punished. They were going to have a trial for her or whatever. And then no, she just gets stuck with Gus, which is the best like punishment for her. But granted, that's also indirect. Like that's her fault because she tried to murder Kipo again. So, but that's really like that's what all of this is really meaningful to me, is that Dr. Amelia's existence, it's not just about having this like we get this direct comparison between Scarlemagne, which Kipo, like, you know, they keep saying like really deep down. And she's like, no, not so really deep down. Like Scarlemagne, you've expressed, like, I know what's there. And we see Scarlemagne come around. And then we also have Dr. Amelia, who like literally cannot, like, she's just will never. And those people exist and they're real. And Kipo's still like, you know, this isn't about you. This is about me. And I'm going to be me. And I'm going to give you this chance. And it's not on me for you to take it.
Yeah, that's some really interesting stuff. I love how you talked about that. I totally think you're tapping into what the show's going for with Kipo as a character. I think in terms of the comparisons to other shows, like, yeah, I think Kipo probably presents the same boundless love that a Steven does. And I think it's interesting how the difference I feel like is how the shows ultimately have handle what happens with the villain, despite, you know, the protagonists are expressing boundless love and empathy. Right. And then, you know, maybe an Avatar and a Kipo have this solution, this unconventional solution, in terms of the energy bending, and here, like, she's stuck with Gus. And then Steven takes the step to actually, like, change White Diamond's mind and, like, actually redeem the villains, or you quote unquote redeem, not actually what they're doing. But, yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting to compare it to the two. But yeah, certainly Kipo's expression of love, I feel like is the most important part. And yeah, I think in terms of the empathy for all living creatures, I think totally think this is a huge component of Kipo, as it's the conflict is like animals versus humans and you know, sapient animals. But you know, Kipo, like, you have a villain here who's not who seems incapable of or unwilling, more like it, to express this empathy for the mutes as being different from the other from humans. And Kipo, this whole season's kind of about tapping into this empathy and not othering people who are different from you.
You know what? This actually, I mean, I came at this from a very different perspective. I saw a lot of like Infinity Train season 3.
I think similar to what Infinity Train's
because
doing,
like for me, like, one thing that struck me is like, because like I do think it's been like a more common thread for a lot of these shows to like have conversations about empathy and like what's like the right or best way to like give empathy to people that could harm you. And I did think it was very interesting that, you know, I think like when I was a teenager, I started to develop this kind of like irritation when movies, like especially like Disney, like they have like this unwritten rule where like the protagonist, no matter how evil the villain is, they're never allowed to kill them because it would like, you know, it's just not allowed. The villain has to do it themselves or like cause an avalanche or fall off a cliff. There was always that line there, and it used to frustrate me because I'm like, look, like the protagonist doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes it's okay to, like, to if it's self-defense, if it's life or death, like I think sometimes like it can be portrayed in a way that ultimately makes sense and deserves to be seen. And I remember like when I was watching Infinity Train Book 3, when like, sorry, spoilers for that, obviously, but like when the culmination happens, like Simon really does just do himself in, and Grace gives him every opportunity, even when he's literally trying to end her life. She won't kill him, and she grieves his death when he's gone. And I remember like my reaction to that was very much like, oh, like at first I was like, oh man, it's that trope. But then I was like, oh my God, no, this like it had to be done this way because like there's no universe where Grace should have his blood on her hands. Like she does not deserve that as a character. Like that would not be fair to her. So when I was watching Dr. Amelia, like I had a very similar feeling where I was like, Kipo's given her every opportunity. So as far as Kipo's concerned, she's done her best here. She is doing this for her own moral reasons, like to an extent, like it doesn't really matter if Dr. Amelia takes it or not. It's about Kipo doing what she thinks she needs to do and what she believes in doing. And for Dr. Amelia to have her downfall when she is again trying to just like hurt Kipo, it's like, yeah, she did herself in, but like that's literally the point. Like if you're so unwilling to change, you kind of like, yeah, what you get is what you get. And it's like a very sobering kind of, I mean, Infinity Train book 3 was very sobering, like in that message. I feel like less so here, but it's very much like a continual thing where it's like, it balances like the desire to give someone a chance and other options to try to show them that is possible, which like in Scarleman's case, like completely paid off. Like for him, like everyone has their reasons, which is again, I think why like the flashbacks are helpful. Like we see enough to understand like this is how everyone got to where they are. But the question is, where will they go from here? And in Scarleman's case, he was able to move forward in a much more positive, open-hearted, empathetic way. But for Dr. Amelia, like she wasn't, and that's like why she ended up where she is. Like it's a directly result of her actions because she was given so many opportunities to change her mind, and she just didn't want to. So I feel like it's a nice way of kind of balancing both those things in a way that feels really honest and like sincere, and not like anyone got off easy or like anyone got anything too harsh. Like it was a really good balance.
Well, it's like, you know, at this point, like she, like that's all. It's also this kind of like resentment. Like, what was killing Kipo going to accomplish? She had lost. So that's kind of,
yeah. It's like what she represents. Like I think that was even a thing in one of the episodes. Like Kipo asked, like, why did she hate me? And her mom is like, it's not you, honey. It's like what you represent for the world. I feel like that's
also
like,
probably her literal, like her literal existence as a mega. Like she's human and a mega, and so it's like, but it's just one of those things too. It's like at that point, it's like you were just gonna kill her because you suck.
Yeah, I think it's really, it's yeah. She lost when she lost the support of all the people, and then it's interesting how the finale handles that with it just being her, and it's all about dealing with.
Also, you're beating up a 13-year-old girl. You suck.
Yeah. I think children's stories have long grappled with the question of what the hero should do with the villain.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, another prominent entry into that discussion. One that I think I don't see what we did with Amelia as like super different than necessarily what other things could, but the Kipo's characterization and her expression of love in him, I think that was very affecting in a way, especially in that way. In terms of the solution with Gus, I mean, it's, I think it's like tantamount to her going to jail or her being killed off unintentionally or something.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's actually a fate worse than death because that kid's annoying.
It is literally her own version of hell. It's
it is, honestly. Like they're literally like, oh, you want to be trapped in your old burrow with a mute that wants nothing more than to be your friend? Have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Michelle brought up Scarlemagne, and more briefly about like how Scarlemagne ends up being handled. He does have this the quote unquote redemption arc in which he's just he's expressing empathy and regret for like how he acted before, and he does kind of get this full complete story. And then interestingly, he gets the sacrificial the sacrificial redemption move. What I find interesting, because we always talk about like I was like before share, it's like, oh, is Catcher gonna die to redeem herself? That's the classic discussion, right? But here, I think Scarlemagne was already that's kind of what's interesting. He already went through the arc, and he still has this ending.
Well, that's how much he loves Kipo, and I think that's really what like really gets you about all of this. Is he like, and it's been shown like every time they refer to each other as siblings, I like cry a little bit, and he even says that at the end where he's like, if I hadn't been so stubborn, like I could have gone with Leo and we could have grown up together, and it's like, cry, I'm just gonna cry, it's fine. And I think that's really like, it's really like, and I had also had this spoiled for me, unfortunately. Like I had seen a really nice comic and I was like, oh great, he dies.
Don't look at the comics.
So I knew it was coming. God, I can't be on Twitter. Like it's horrible. I was doing so good, and then I was like, man, I got like the two best things in the finale spoiled for me. And but it's definitely this, like, and I think this is, I'm not, is it a subversion? Like, he's already redeemed and he does it anyway. I think that's a
subversion of what you'd expect with him.
And it's literally
sacrificing himself to redeem himself. It's not
and it's like, but no, like, he's already redeemed and he sacrifices himself because that's how much he loves Kipo. And that really just gets me, like, just really just hurts.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. It was certainly very emotionally affecting, and I think is an emotional payoff to something that was really well developed throughout the last few seasons. So, in that regard, I think it's good. It's like, what is a Scarlemagne's role in the new world? I think this is another classic question. And,
I think that's also that's also like what makes it even more tragic is because, like, he was gonna fit in. He was gonna, like, he could have been in the epilogue, but he wasn't, and I think that's really the true tragedy of it all.
Yeah, I mean, it also makes me, like, more proud of his decision because it very much, like, he came to it on his own terms, and he did it for like, he wanted to protect his sister, like the way everyone had, like, in that final battle was helping out Kipo. Like, that was his moment to contribute in a way that he really wanted to, and I think that makes it. Like, it is really sad objectively that he died, but, like, I feel like, it makes such a difference that his arc wasn't tied to a grand gesture, and that the grand gesture came from the fact that just, like, Kipo literally changed his whole life for the better, and he felt like he needed to, like, assist her in her time of need too. And it's so good. Oh, I had another point, but I can't remember it now. It'll come back eventually.
Okay, let me bring it up a few things, but yeah, it's and I think it's very emotionally affecting. Yeah, I think a lot of what we're doing in the finale is a little bit of normal finale moves, quote unquote tropes, if you will, which I think is, you'd expect. Avatar did this too. You'd expect it from a show like this. And we have another thing I want to bring up. We have the giant fight. I don't know if this is a trope, but we get the giant kaiju fight.
Kaiju fight's definitely a trope.
Yeah, I didn't expect it from this show, although we had giant kaiju fight from a Studio Mir animated show featuring cutaways to the pilots piloting the I mean, obviously, I got Voltron flashbacks.
I thought she was using the walrus to so she could cure Kipo. I was completely thrown off.
Right. So initially she was going to do that. I think that's what the show presented, and then she changes her mind. She's like, I can't, like, it doesn't matter if I've already lost, even if I cure Kipo. So there's an act of, like, rage, I think, in defiance of her doing that.
Also, she shows up to prom. Like, I'm sorry, you put on lipstick to beat up a 13-year-old girl.
Can we talk about her look at the end? Yeah.
Yes. Why?
And the song, I was like, Jesus.
Another similarity to, like, Simon in the finale of Infinity Train. Like, apparently the villains have to
literally dress to kill in that moment. Dr. Amelia.
She's in heels, and I'm like, I can't deal with this. Like, I wasn't ready. Like,
were you into the look, or we couldn't appreciate the look? The
problem is I'm gay, so, like, that's not my fault. And then like. So obviously there was a reaction, and then I was all like, look, there's something about women in black lipstick that's just, a thing. But I was like, what? I just can't get over it.
Very bold of the show to go from Amelia kills her brother in cold blood. Next episode, is they make her as hot as possible.
There was a really funny tweet that was like, oh yes, we like female villains except for Amelia. Like, she sucks.
Yeah, and I guess it's the concluding thing with Amelia. It's like, I do think ultimately they don't go down any sort of empathy route with her. Like, you certainly, like, it's when we present, like, the fact that her dad was really terrible to her and espoused this hateful identity with her, I see it as the show trying to more explain why she is the way she is versus trying to make you sympathize.
Yeah, it's more like, why are you, like, what's so messed up about you? That's like,
and I think very contrasting with how Leo taught Kipo empathy.
Yes.
And kind of the role of dads and parents in instilling these core values in their children. But yeah, I mean, I think that was, and then, like that, it's like, oh, we're going to explain why she's the way she is. Then she kills her brother. And, like, oh my God. Yeah. That whole flashback, it's brutal. It's brutal.
Ooh.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I like overall with Amelia, I don't know. Like, I wasn't like, I think at the end it was very interesting, all the stuff we talked about they did with her. Otherwise, I wasn't like, incredibly, like, super into the arc of her as the main villain of the season. But I think, as we've talked about, it's like not primarily about that. It's about these other themes.
It just makes Kipo the best character ever. That's all.
And yeah, more about Kipo and about the Unity theme and about the world and stuff. Yeah, so I think we did do some interesting things with her at the end, and what else about the? I have some other random things to bring up. Do we want to do that?
Sure,
random hits
absolutely.
through the season?
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay,
absolutely.
we mentioned Zane. Here's my Zane comments.
I'm ready. I've been waiting.
I don't remember it would be more better if I remembered the workout raccoon lady's name.
Label. Her name's Label.
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 Okay.
Label.
Okay,
Label
she likes
and-
labels.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
Got you guys. Don't
Label
worry.
and Zane is lesbian himbo solidarity.
Oh my
Yes.
god!
Okay,
Yay! I
it's
love
absolutely
it.
correct.
Oh
Like,
my
that is-
god!
They even open a gym together. I can't get over it.
They
Like,
open a gym together at the end. Yeah.
Dylan, I was sitting here waiting for this comment, and there's no way that it could have been like I couldn't have been.
I held on to it
better
until
comment.
now.
Like, I'm really glad. Like, this is.
Thank you. I think that's what they're going for. I don't think it's like my smart I think that's just what they're going for.
No, that's absolutely like this isn't. You're not reading too much into it. That's exactly.
Yeah.
Follow-up question though, like, is Greta like also a himbo? Because she definitely has that himbo energy about
Yeah,
her,
Greta
yeah, no.
is the himbo. Like, that's
right?
Herbo or whatever. Yeah, no.
Herbo.
I think I was like we're missing a himbo from Kipo. Yeah, I guess it's Greta. But we get Greta's smart moment at the end commenting on Wolf. That's interesting.
That was okay. That was also
I-
funny. And they're like, and she's back.
I really appreciate the like taking off of the wolf skin at the end. I think that was a big move.
So good. That was just chef's kiss. Also, she's adorable.
Yeah, and it tied in well to when Margot her childhood friend came back. In
Oh,
episode
I won't
3.
lie. Every time somebody got cured, I was like, I'm gonna cry. Like, I was like, don't cure the children. Ugh.
Yeah, well, I think the use of children, I think, was good early on too. Let's talk about the fact that people, including Yum Yum and the other rat and some other people,
Poor
get,
Yum Oh, his bulgy eyes as a regular cat was so unsettling.
They really did. Like, the thing was, like, the entire time it was happening, me and my wife were like, it's Yum Yum, it's Yum Yum, and they like play it up. They're like, look, and I was like, why are y'all doing this to me? Like, there was like. They like literally go around the whole world before we come back to Yum Yum. I'm like, I hate you. I hate what you're doing. You're hurting me. Oh.
Yeah. It's I think something how this season deals with death, considering Amelia at the end has a similar-ish fate to death, and then we have the curing of the sapient mutes and them turning into normal animals. I think is supposed to be viewed as a death by the show.
Definitely. Well, and that's what the thing was like. Theoretically, it's like, could they cure them? And then it's like, I guess not. And so that's kind of like, I was kind of hoping maybe we get a little bit of that in the epilogue, but no, it was really like that. I think to me that was really what was so upsetting.
It's upsetting. It's like, I think satisfying in a stakes sort of way, like
right.
that there's consequences.
Well,
and
the thing was like they did it. Like they did it to Yum Yum, which was like, oh my god, and then they did it to Brad, and like they kept doing it, and it was so like. Which is what makes it so meaningful.
Are you looking up these mutes' names, or do you just know all
No,
of them?
I just know their names.
Okay. That's nice.
It
Brad,
helps.
yeah.
I'm telling you, you have to watch everything. There was no way I could have said Doug and Hoag's name right if I didn't have.
Yeah, I don't look up.
Like, if I would've, like, you got to watch Netflix with
the subtitles.
with
Yeah,
the
if
subtitles.
they're good
I watched
subtitles.
everything with subtitles.
That's
Got
very
fired at HBO Max's subtitles still, and wow.
Yeah, they fixed their subtitles. We're on good terms now. They fixed them. No, some if Netflix cares about their show, it's great subtitles. If they don't care, it's sometimes bad subtitles.
That's true. That's accurate.
Yeah, the mutes being and I think the fact that they stay dead in quotes being animals is and their life still clearly matters, as we still see Yum Yum in the finale. And
where is he?
The whole episode about how they just can't find him, which is such a cat person. Like, it's so real though. Like, where'd your cat hide? Literally could be anywhere.
You mean the catcher when there's a giant hole in the wall?
Right.
Yeah. I think that the decision by the mutes to ultimately hear out the humans who had done that to all murdered all their friends, in a sense.
That's
Like, I think
the
the
thing.
fact that they
Here's
stay
the thing.
dead is essential for that being such an act
Like,
of empathy on their part.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Because here's the thing. Like, we talked about like everyone's done wrong, and it's true. But it's also like, let's talk about these specific humans. Like, there's been a generational like problem, but like as soon as the humans get to the surface, they just literally start murdering the animals, and it's like, guys, like, do y'all not see that you're doing bad things?
Yeah. Also feels very realistic as to how this would go.
It does.
And,
Oh, it absolutely does.
One of the two billions also got cured.
It was Carlton? Is that his name?
Do they have two different? I don't know. They have different names, but it's
they have different names.
Billions and billions. It's the. I can't believe they murdered the Jizza one. I'm pretty sure. So
that really upset me. Like I was. Well, that was the thing too. Is like that was another one where we watched it happen. Like he's like, I can feel my mind slipping away. And I'm like, this is messed up. You're messed up. Like I was like, oh, it's just. Ooh, it gets me.
Very dark last season. Very dark last season.
Oh, definitely. Well, and I think that's also like kind of like another thing like Michelle was talking about, the stakes. Like, that's really what, they sell this conflict. And it's because like, and you really feel it when the animals are like, you didn't sink their boat. And it's like, yeah, you should have sunk the boats. Like,
yeah,
I feel like the reason stakes are important is because like imagine if you like watch a show where there's a war and like nobody gets hurt or nobody you care about gets hurt. Like the reason people need to get hurt is not because we want them to see them hurt. It's because like this show is trying to tell us that like war and fighting's not a great long-term solution. There need to be casualties so you don't just get all blasé about war.
Well, it's like Dave. Like, look, I know like Dave did it. It was also really funny because Dave like even like. So, like, it's really funny how Dave's story works because, like, he's totally lying. Like, all of this is made up. And then until, like, the very end where he's actually talking about it. But, like, I think they did a really good job of telling this cycle of violence story.
Yeah.
Like, and the fact that it was Dave, hilarious. But, like, they did a really good job. And I think it was also a really great time for Dave to shine. Because Dave's like, you don't understand. I have a point now. So it's like...
Yeah, that was interesting, that backstory with Dave and Benson. It was like, I do think this last season, as we've talked about, does conclude a lot of things that we were wondering about, including how they met and the story behind that. And then we get like this kind
Benson's so cute.
Yeah, that was good. We get this kind of metaphorical, zany story from Dave, which I guess is what fits him. So yeah. I guess that was always how it was going to go. I do think, once again, I think Dave was very funny this season. I think probably him stepping over the crack in season 2 was like the highlight. But there's a lot of other good stuff.
No, it really got me. This was really funny. Was the bug thing? He was.
That was him trolling
Adlib,
Benson about the bug.
He just trolled Benson. He was like, what? Sorry, I've been messing with Benson. I forgot what we were doing. Like,
Benson is so upset because he was so guilty.
He was like, that's a baby, Dave. Like,
yeah, that's a baby. I'm not gonna step on a baby.
So funny. Like, oh my god, like, so funny. And then like when they teach Wolf about traps, and she like just impales Dave.
Yeah, I think I want to once again say I think Dion Cole, the voice actor for Dave, is like one of my all-time voice acting.
Oh my god!
Like,
I mean, legitimately, like, I mean, an artist. Like, it's so funny. And then, like, when Dave's like,
Dave says,
he's
so
like,
funny.
"Yeah, Dave-o, you see, I put an O on my." Like, when Dave's like, "Let's have bro night," it's like so funny.
Yeah.
There's even where he's like with Leo and they're bonding, and he's like, "Oh, like throw some of my arms, see if you can like reach." Like he's just so blasé about.
Well, and then Leo's like, "I really needed this, Dave. You knew I'd be up all night worrying about Kipo." And Dave's like, "Yeah."
He's like, "Oh yeah, that was totally."
Oh yeah, totally.
Dave is good.
So good.
Dave's good. Pivot to what random who the stealth MVP of the season is. Doge, a character I didn't know who they were until this season.
Oh my god! Wait, I can't believe how far away did this podcast, and we haven't brought up the K-pop narwhal.
Well, I'm going to tell first of all, the K-pop narwhal. You guys can tell me your opinions, but I was absolutely in love with the K-pop narwhals. That was one of my favorites in the entire series.
Oh no!
I came around. I was a little horrified.
Okay, so like I try not to watch teasers, but I knew about them from Twitter because I knew
the best thing to release as a teaser performance.
I wasn't ready for them to be in episode 2. And my wife was like, why? Like, my wife was like, not about it. I was completely sold on the K-pop narwhal. She was like, they have abs. And I was like, yeah, that's the best part. Like,
he's so dreamy. He's so dreamy.
What really got me was, one, the song's a bop. 2, like,
yes.
Also, like, they really did it. Like, they were literally singing in Korean and English. It was literally like, like, the fact that these narwhals are singing in Korean is like literally like the best thing that's ever happened. Like, it's so good. And then Doge is like, you wall siren, and she dances everywhere.
Well, the wall siren is amazing. And her just dancing to everything and her relationship with them, I think it's such a joy in the season. And they come back, the K-pop narwhals, too, towards the end.
Yes, and they're just... And everyone, of course, everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Look, I get it. Their songs are great. Like, I want my K-pop Narwhal like CD. Like, where is it? So good."
I know. Yeah, I'll come back to the soundtrack in a second. But the last point on Doug, other than her being hilarious and dancing all the time and wonderful, I think Doug, the daughter of Hogue, I think that was a character we.
Oh my god, that's such a. Oh wow!
So
yeah, apparently that was a character Hogue. He was in season 1. He was like the like joyless leader of their clan. I think incredible payoff to Hogue, a character I think we'd rightly criticized his role in the show, but it's like, oh wow, Hogue's had totally had served a purpose because he represented kind of Amelia's number one human, and he came around through his relationship with his daughter, and like at the end, I think that was incredibly powerful. I think it totally justifies everything we did with Hogue.
It's amazing. And then like when he's dancing with her, like it's so good. Like,
and you're like, oh, that's where she gets it from.
So good. Like I think they really did. Like when they were like Dogue, and then they were like, that's Hogue's daughter. I was like, oh god. Like,
I know. Yeah, I'm like that. That to me like speaks. And we've talked about a lot of incredible like things that like felt complete with the show and felt like they came back and came up in great ways. This to me is like this small thing of this like grumpy kind of side character who didn't seem like they're serving too much of a purpose, ultimately paying off in like an extremely emotionally satisfying way.
And he was worried about his daughter the whole time, and that makes sense. And then of course she was like, no, you're worried about you. And it was like, oh my god, this is so good. And like, and it's funny like how they did it, because Dogue is like the dumbest character ever. And I don't mean that she's dumb. I mean that like the concept of her is the dumbest thing ever, and it's amazing. She just dances everywhere.
She
like
just dances,
the whole,
that's it.
like the whole sequence when she's like, I have to think about this, and she like dances for like 5 seconds. Art, like truly beautiful. Like it's so good.
It's good. Honestly, some of my favorite stuff from the season is early on with Hogue in that episode. Dogue, I guess, not Hogue. Yeah. Also, we had dancing. I think in episode 5, we had some crazy dancing going on. I guess the dubstep beats. The dubstep beats.
Oh my god, the return of the dubstep beats and the amazing queen. Like, oh my god, the dubstep queen beats.
They're my favorite. Like, I know the Timbercats are my favorite, but then it's the dubstep beats. Like one song, we have to talk. Oh, song, so good. Like her just trying to be cool. A+, and then she actually knows how to speak dubstep. So good.
Yeah, interesting that she knew to speak dubstep. But yeah, also song, big moment of the season, song turning back human, which I think is powerful. I think the whole arc we went on with Song, from realizing she was the giant monkey, seeing her on all the flashbacks, her coming back to Kipo at the end.
I think that's really like, that's something that this show will be remembered for, is like Song, because of like doing everything with the mega monkey, and then turns out it's her mom. Like that's just literally like, wow.
Yeah, that's some of the iconic visuals of the show early on, is Kipo playing to the monkey and connecting to everything in the show.
Oh, I guess you can't hug my finger anymore. And I was like sobbing, it's fine. Well, and that other thing too is that like they're like, let's kill Yumyan, but then we're gonna cure Song. And I'm like, guys, this is a whiplash. There's so many emotions. Like,
yeah, no disrespect to Yumyan, but I would prefer curing Song, I guess. Than I guess
I was devastated in both instances.
Yeah, but Song and Leo, great in the season, and great characters overall. This is random, but as something on my notes we haven't hit on, the use of we say Wonder Beasts at the end of the show, which previously had been just the dumb title of the show, and now we say it. Buy or sell the use of now we're in the Age of Wonderbeasts, says Kipo. In what capacity are we buying?
So. I love it when they do this. So like when Kipo at the end is like, yeah, it can be like an Age of Wonderbeasts. I was like, there it is. Like, I'm about it. I love it when they do stuff like this. Whenever they say like the episode title, I'm about it. Like, I'm sold. I love this stupid nonsense. Bye.
The thing, they're still mutes though. They're not suddenly Wonderbeasts.
They
like,
are
what does it
mean?
Beasts. It's just a descriptor of the mutes?
Yeah, obviously. It's an Age of Wonderbeasts.
It fits the descriptor of, like, the age Kipo is naming, which feels very right because, like, she's brought, like, everyone together.
It should be, the Age of Humans and Wonderbeasts.
I mean, I think they're all Wonderbeasts. Like,
I guess that's true. Kipo is a Wonderbeast.
Just one kind of animal. It's all animals.
Great.
All humans are Wonderbeasts? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good take. Humans are also Wonderbeasts. That's the moral we learned from the end of Kipo, is that
also
aren't we all Wonderbeasts?
Exactly.
Another important thing is season 3 had an drastic increase in the amount of Mega Jaguar, which is an improvement. So
a lot of satisfying amount of Mega, and she's still the Mega Jaguar at the end.
Yes. Oh my god, the whole time I was like, please don't take it away. She looks.
I know
so
you kind
cool.
of shows usually feel like they usually take that thing away, sort of thing away, but no, she's is used in the finale, and also I love them riding the dogs in that.
And they brought Wolf's the alpha, and then they brought the Chever sisters back.
Yes, we got the Chever sisters.
You gotta see them with the cheese again.
An important prophecy.
My wife yelled when she was like, do the song. They did it. She was like, yes.
We definitely got the song again. Yeah. The music of the show, I feel like most notable, and we, as of this podcast, we are awaiting the release of the soundtrack, which will be very soon. But we know that's coming out Friday. We got a extended version of the theme song to close out the show, which I think was very satisfying. Yeah, I'm excited to hear the whole thing.
Just the use of songs with lyrics, just chef's kiss. So good.
Yeah. I see previous discussions about this, but also great this. I mean, the other big original music highlight was the K-pop song. It was really incredible.
Good.
I mean, we also got the return of Heroes on Fire. The ballad.
And the Theaters had another original
song. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, excited to hear all of those. Yeah, what's the best song from Kipo, the original song? Is it Heroes on Fire or is it the K-pop song?
I mean, thematically, it's Heroes on Fire, but it's not my favorite.
But it's
overall.
not as much of a bop as that K-pop song.
Yeah, it's not. But then there's I love the K-pop song, but also Purple Jaguar Eye.
That's true. And the song, the other one from season 1, the song Leo sings.
Yes.
That Scarlemane gets his twisted version of, and oh my god, yeah, there's so much good stuff in the. Most excited to read. I still think the sympathy for the mandrill from season 2 is kind of the best episode of the show. Looking back,
I feel that too.
Still, that's like the climax for me of the show is the incredible backstory.
Well, you can't. It's hard to compete with the music because in season 2 we get so much of the creepy piano that is literally the best thing ever.
So good. The Scarlemane's theme is honestly one of my favorites.
It's great, and we get a lot more of it this season too. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. And as always, the show license a variety of genres of music to great effect, and I think continued this season. Excited to listen to all of them once they're on the soundtrack / mixtape.
Yes.
Yeah, Kipo, definitely a legacy of having incredible music. We talked about it extensively as well in the previous podcast. The animation, I think, good again. I still think kind of probably the highs of the animation were in season 1, I guess. Maybe we just got more used to it, but...
you kind of get used to the giant animals, but it's still I don't know.
I'm still going to look back at the
village.
Yeah, that's good. I'm still going to look back on the Benson introduction as kind of the animation.
There's literally there's nothing after that. That's literally the best.
and this episode 2 chase and stuff. But there's some great, I think, action sequences this season too. I'm sure some more will stand out on rewatch as well.
I mean, the kaiju fight, was
Did you love the kaiju fight, Delaney?
Okay, so I don't do I just like kaiju fights? I'm unsure. It was very emotionally compelling because she's beating up a 13-year-old girl. It's fine. I think they did a really good job. I really I think the way they did it was really interesting in that they were showing just enough violence, but when it was really, really violent, then we would always cut to them in the mega. But then I think the use of the water, I think it was really interesting. It was a really compelling fight, and of course, and it was a different kind of fight. There was, we didn't have the anime lasers, which so it was a different kind of kaiju fight.
Yeah, the Korra Book 2 finale, reminiscent of that sort of kaiju fight.
We don't get that. Two lasers.
Look, I think this was really well done, this kaiju fight. But I'll say, if I never had to see another kaiju fight outside of Pacific Rim or things that are about kaiju fights, then I'd be okay.
Yeah, honestly, I feel that also.
We've seen a lot of them.
I'm
fine.
done.
I'm done. I was why are we having a giant kaiju fight? But it makes sense. But it was also also she didn't look like Kipo just looks like a jaguar.
Very Atlas robot move in Voltron to have her transform into a giant two-headed walrus at the end.
She looked more human than I was expecting. When when Song turned into a monkey, she was just a giant monkey. Like, why? I don't know. It's interesting that Amelia looks so much more human as a.
That's interesting. That's true. She's just a monkey at that. Yeah, I guess it's like hard for her to just be a giant walrus unless she's going to.
I mean, it's not. She just looked really goofy, so we wouldn't take the fight as seriously.
Yeah, granted, I'm assuming it's because she didn't spend as much time or whatever, but it's also like, why you do this?
Yeah. I just wasn't. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to look back on it as like a huge negative or anything with the kaiju fight, and it's very well done. It's just
very surprising. Like when she turned into the walrus, I was like, what?
I think the act of her doing that is pretty interesting. Like,
we assumed she was taking that to just like to stop Kipo, but no, she just wants to do it on herself, and just like that's such a wild card move for someone.
It was like. That's the other thing I really appreciate about Kipo is that several times Kipo like legitimately shocks me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And not in a way that's like you couldn't have predicted this, but like in a really legitimate way. Like I feel like it felt earned that I was shocked.
I think so. I think it was a very interesting direction to take the character, her kind of changing her mind on that, and the dynamic of her losing her people at the end and her being desperate and stuff. Maybe, Lotorish, I don't know. Similar situation, I guess. Look, sorry for all the Voltron comparisons. It's a Studio Mirror DreamWorks show that had a giant kaiju fight at the end. Okay,
it's the same. Sorry, we have to.
It's not the same, but look, there's a lot of Delaney.
Is
anything?
She-Ra a kaiju?
No, don't say that. No.
Mini kaiju.
No,
yeah.
Big Lady, they're different.
What is a kaiju unless it's something that's bigger than you are to start with?
She's an 8-foot tall warrior princess. Sounds like a kaiju.
Can't believe not 80 feet. Can't believe you brought out the Is She-Ra kaiju take at the end. Wow, what a take.
She jumps out of the ship and she just destroys spaceships. Sounds a lot like kaiju to me.
Sounds like a powerful person. That's not kaiju.
Well, if it's then Mega Jaguar is a kaiju if She-Ra's a kaiju.
Exactly.
Which I guess if Narwhal.
You're welcome, Michelle.
Robot a transformer. I can't live in this world. Come on, we need more
transformer. What are you talking about?
We're doing Voltron universe, not the Okay, Delaney. I know they are. Delaney, what? Anything else from the season on your mind?
Like legitimately, I really loved this season. I love Kipo. It's one of my favorite shows ever. I can't wait. I'm actually really excited to rewatch it. I think it's just a really beautiful story, and it means a lot to me.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think we got that from the podcast. You did a great job of expressing what it meant to you. Yeah, and I think Kipo is as strong of a rewatch show as any. Like, just go binge the 30 episodes.
I don't like rewatching things, and I'm like, I'm gonna rewatch Kipo.
Yeah, I want to see how it plays all together too. I mean, this is as close of a viewing experience as we got to it all together, just because it aired within the span of 10 months, all the 3 seasons. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I guess that's DreamWorks' move. All of She-Ra aired within a year and a half of each other too. Interesting. But I don't know. I mean, I think this was it would have been nice if Kipo was spread out more, but also it's like a complete connected story, so it is like it is nice to also get it close to each other. Michelle, anything else from the season you want to bring up?
Yeah, I got 2 things. I really appreciated that Kipo lost her cool and was planning to just destroy Amelia / maybe the ship in that moment, because like we've had Kipo be kind of so focused on just the most positive side of herself, and seeing like in the extent that she like felt so guilty about the mutes getting hurt and she felt responsible, and kind of getting swept up in that emotion. Like, again, she's a 13-year-old. It makes a lot of sense that she would have a breaking point, and I appreciate that they they kind of leaned into that for a bit. Like, ultimately, she changed her mind because her friends talked her out of it and gave her some perspective, which she couldn't really have in that moment of just being so angry. Because, like, again, like, if you have a character that's supposed to represent a lot of, like, aspirationally positive qualities we all wish we could have, like, you gotta give them some grounding moments that, like, not like, you don't have to, but, like, I appreciate when you make them a little more, like, dimensional than just always being the person of reason or always having the best idea. And I love that she was that frustrated in that moment. It felt really right. And it was just kind of honestly refreshing to see. So I love that. Second thing, I think I've said like from the start, like Jamak was like my favorite character, but like
Jamak,
honestly, in my heart, like Wolf is like the one I care the most about, like even more than Scarlemagne. And I remember thinking in season 2, like one things I was sad about was that Wolf didn't have as much focus. One aspect of this season I really liked, on top of Wolf being much more actively involved in the story when she's not necessarily always like physically with Kipo going off and doing her own stuff with other characters, is that it really hit home for me when the prom was happening. When Kipo was so upset that Wolf wasn't there, like that to me hit on a level that when they first were doing karaoke, Heroes on Fire didn't, because like in season 2, when they're singing Heroes on Fire, like Kipo wants everyone to be happy. Kipo cares about everyone. So like it makes sense, like in terms of Kipo's personality, that she'd be cheering Wolf up in that moment and trying to give her a positive memory. But what cemented the fact that Wolf is especially important to Kipo and she treasures her more than the average person was like how distraught she was that she couldn't share this special moment with Wolf. And that was like the number one thing on her mind. Like not even about like Song or Leo, anyone else. She wanted
that
to. That
really got me too.
And like I love that, because like I think Delaney made some great points about like how Kipo's relationship with Benson's its own thing, and it's just as important. Like for me, like Wolf and Kipo is like everything. So I just love that they got that focus, and it felt really genuine and really sold me on how much Kipo cares about Wolf, because we know like Wolf goes to so many lengths to take care of Kipo from season 1 on, but like that was a moment that really felt like the other half of that, you know, caring relationship. You really see it on Kipo's side in that moment, and I really liked it.
Well, it's like Wolf, whenever they're apart, Wolf literally can't shut up about Kipo. It's amazing.
I know, right? And so finally,
good.
Kipo's talking about Wolf, and it's just so good.
God, I was like, how gay are y'all? Like, literally, like when like she was like, I want to dance to our song. I was like, ooh.
And then she makes that amazing entrance on the flying car with the cape when the song's playing. I'm like, oh my God, this is the best entrance to a prom there's ever been in the history of proms.
I do want to ask Michelle, how do you feel about Jamak being a bus driver?
I was gonna ask that.
My God, why would you ask that? It's so upsetting. I mean, okay, if I had one like negative of this season, it's absolutely that Jamak lost all of his mean girl energy and he's totally chill now.
He lost all of his mean girl energy.
I dislike that immensely, because that was like 90% of his charm.
But I love
him. But he's very
chill to them. Like when they were like in the cell and they were like, Jamak literally wouldn't shut up about you, and Jamak's like, they're lying.
I know. So he's got like 10% of that energy still.
But, like, I was gonna say, like,
on Jamak, he's the best.
Look, Jamak, like, he did an incredible season 1, and he's in one episode last season, and he was really good in that episode. Mm-hmm. I was like real disappointed with Jamak this season.
Okay, thank you. Like,
I thought he was really good in this season.
It was sweet. Like I love that he's, but like Jamak's supposed to have an edge, you know?
Yeah, he's supposed to have an edge. Like, he doesn't need an edge. It's just like, I'm gonna feel differently about his character without the edge. That's all.
Yeah, it's like, look, this is the life when you stand all the mean girls like me. It's like sometimes they get completely redeemed and now they're boring, and it's like good for him.
He was really good.
Good for him, but also
that's valid.
I will say, this is the one thing. I feel like the show, in so many ways, has felt so complete. I think the show probably didn't really recognize what it had in Jamak after season 1, or else it would have threaded in throughout the show better. Or maybe it thought his arc was over.
Literally a treasure. So, like, that's
fair. I don't know.
So good. I mean, that's why I appreciate glitch text, because Mitch will always be Mitch.
Please,
so
I was going to say, Mitch, please, we appreciate you now even more, Mitch. Stay who you are. Like.
Even more now because of Jamak.
I know, right? No, but I think I love the thoughts on Wolf. I think Wolf is such a great character looking back to, and always was. But yeah, Wolf also amazing. This season was Softy Wolf, right? And we saw she still had her toughness to her, but we saw the huge payoff of her relationship with.
Well,
with
I'm
Kipo and
really glad that they didn't really resolve her and Margot. Like, I really granted, I didn't want Margot to get demuted. But I really did that was something that I really liked, how Wolf stood her ground. Also, Benson and Dave in the background were hilarious. Are you getting stabbed now? So good.
Yeah. They were such good backup during Wolf and Margot's drama. It was so good.
Yeah, Wolf really great looking. I mean, Kipo and Wolf, all three, Kipo, Wolf, Benson, all incredible characters. I know Rad wants to make a Wolf movie. So
wait, oh my god, please, Wolf!
That's his big push after Kipo. He wants a Wolf movie.
Please, Wolf is the best.
Wolf is incredible.
She has to get a new Stocky. That could be the whole plot right there.
I love
new
that.
Stocky.
She killed my best friend.
Yeah, killed my best friend.
So
yeah, it was good.
I really love Wolf, and I think, and regardless of how much I actually wanted it to be gay, I do think Kipo and Wolf's relationship is really important, and they've done an incredible job with it.
And they found each other first. Like, they were the relationship that started everything from the first episode. So it's just really nice that that's like remains such a focus of the seasons, not like all to the same extent, but like to have this much weight on that, like on top of all the plot stuff going on for season 3, just
and how much they've grown together.
Feels like such a choice, and I really am happy that choice was made. I think it was made for all the right reasons.
Yeah, I think that was really wonderful, a big aspect of the show. Really happy with all the things we've highlighted here. I think we hit on everything I had to talk about, and looking back so much in the season and in the series to really celebrate, and so happy we got Kipo, such a highlight of the modern kind of animation age that Renaissance maybe in some ways, and hope for even more shows like Kipo. I mean, super kudos to DreamWorks for highlighting
everything gay and
greenlighting
hip-hop.
this original gay, like, different show, and immediately giving it a full order and stuff. Yeah, it is really good. And I'm like pretty happy with this format of just a complete low episode count. Like, I'm fine with that if we want to do more. Like,
I just
obviously
want the story.
all the shows
It doesn't
different.
matter like how many episodes. Like,
yeah, it all depends on the story, because again, like you both know, I am such an Amphibia stan. Amphibia has a lot of what you might consider filler. I do not, but that's a discourse we will not have today. It really is just about the show and what the show specifically wants to do.
they're different.
Yeah.
No, the show is crafted. I don't know what came first, the episode count or the story, but like they fit, right? Like different shows fit different. I know Amphibia is definitely specifically playing for a specific amount of episodes and seasons, right? And so it's good when shows have plans like that. And
it's good when shows have plans.
Yeah, some shows don't. That's fine.
We like that.
Go in
it's
interesting
good.
directions, but so happy what we got from Kipo. Say congrats to all of the crew on a really incredible show that I think will definitely stand the test of time for animation audiences, hopefully audiences in general, hopefully more people even check out Kipo in the future. Kind of like what happened with Avatar, is it only like doubled and exponentially grew in size after the show ended. And let us know all your thoughts on the Kipo final season anywhere. You can leave a comment at overlyanimated.com. Find all the ways to contact us there. Consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our current patrons, especially our patron podcast Otaku Guy 01, and thanks as always to our patron executive producers Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, Needle, and Phonician. Been a lot of fun covering Kipo. Hard to believe it's already over too. We'll see.
I'm gonna miss it.
Excited to rewatch it too, though. So it's been fun. Thanks you for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.